Thank you, everybody. It's a really good turnout for one of the first panels of the whole show. Welcome to PAX. Obviously, it's the very beginning of a very fun weekend. Look, I think one of the really big things that I want to touch on. Oh, and also welcome to people watching online. This is one of the streamed theatres, so always got to give the acknowledgement to the people who are watching out there. But one of the really big things that I wanted to kind of talk about here today was, I don't make trailers. I love to watch trailers. I think they are obviously incredibly important to the business these days. We have very kind of online video sort of world. So I think we know that as people who love games, we want to get a sense of what a game is going to play like, or if not even play like, what's it going to feel like to go and kind of spend hours in this world, and is it enough to convince us to part with our very precious dollars? So I got together a panel of people who really kind of know the ins and outs, both makers of trailers and marketers, to really help us understand what makes a good trailer, what is their perspective on how important trailers are in this business today, and then how do you make something that balances the excitement and grabs people's attention, but tries to not go too far and promise too much so that you end up disappointing people. So our fabulous panel here today is, we have Mick Hamill, who's the head of production at the CG studio and trailer making studio at Plastic Wax. We have Chris Wright, oh yeah, go on, let's give everybody the claps as we go down the list. We have Chris Wright, managing director of a publisher and company, Surprise Attack. Trent Custers, who is the co-founder and director of League of Geeks, who you may know best for their game Armello. And Katie Steggs, a creative director and consultant from the company Lumi Consulting.
Hi.
So I generally like to, skip the let's have everybody's 5-minute background history type stuff, and instead try to dive into just, I think, a good question that everybody can have a quick bite at, which is, from each of your perspectives, because each are quite different, how important are trailers to your business, and I guess to the whole games business from where you sit? And we'll start with you, Mick.
Thank you. For the first part of the question, in terms of trailers and how important they are to our business, basically they're our bread and butter. It's our core business. So clients come to us to
pretty important
to make for either pre-rendered or in-engine trailers for their game. And without that, we would not have a company. So that's great. But just in terms of how important they are to gaming and the industry in general, I mean, I think a really great trailer is what is going to put a game on the map and in the forefront and eyes of the players, as soon as possible and as early as possible. It might be, it could be 3 years out from when the game comes out as a teaser that gets people to go, holy shit, that looks awesome. Say the Cyberpunk 2077 trailer, for example, that everyone's like, oh my God, when's this game coming out? So, yeah, it's extremely important, and yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Cool. Chris?
Yeah, similarly, so on the indie spectrum, the trailer is probably the single most important marketing asset. It's the thing that gets a journalist to write about the game because they'll watch the trailer after hopefully reading the pitch. It's the thing that gets the consumer to understand what the game is, and we don't have that long lead up where gamers are like hungry for information like they will be on the AAA. So the trailer is like your chance to get in front of them for 2 minutes and sell the game. So yeah, it's for us, it's like the most important thing when we're thinking about marketing assets or marketing message is the trailer is kind of like where it starts.
Cool. Trent?
Yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, we announced our game Armello with a fully animated trailer. I mean, we weren't getting paid for our work, and we put like $10,000 or $15,000 into a trailer, which was the biggest expense so far. And we didn't even have a game at that point. It was like, this is what it's going to be, hey. It was just selling tone. But yeah, it's huge for independent developers. I think as well for a game like ours, which is largely pretty abstract. I mean, it's a strategy game with like characters moving around hex tiles. So, you can show someone a 100-foot rabbit standing on a tiny forest, or you can give them a fully animated trailer. It sells a lot more. And also, I think the biggest one for us is that if we're trying to get press, like obviously Chris has touched on a few things, like you've got to, it's important to get the quick 2-minute sell, put it in front of people's eyes who wouldn't normally be looking for that sort of thing. But when dealing with the press, if you can give them something that we call like a premium asset, which is like video content. So if you send them a press release and you're like, hey, we've just announced our game, it's really cool, here's a screenshot. They're like, okay, well, what am I going to do, write an article and just put up a screenshot? But if you can give them a trailer, then it's nice, rich content that they know that a lot of their viewers or readers are going to probably want to engage with. And it's just better for the site in general. So that's a big one for us. It helps us get a lot of press. And we've done, I was going through our final trailer folders, and we've done, I think, almost like 10 trailers for various reasons throughout Armello's lifespan.
Cool.
From my perspective in marketing, the trailer is the first point where you can connect the emotion of your game to your potential audience. So I really like them because I just think that they're the first opportunity that a developer has to like tell a part of their story and start building that community out there and get people invested. And as you've all already said, they're one of the best marketing assets that we can have, and I always try and squeeze more trailers out of the people that I work with because they're so effective when it comes to just building hype and like getting excitement and representing what potentially people could have a piece of eventually.
That's really cool. I mean, it's something I guess that we can underappreciate sometimes. You know, obviously the big AAA guys have so many different angles that they can hit on with marketing budget. But for a lot of the smaller guys that actually, having the trailer is the absolute, that's essentially your one-stop way to get people's attention. Is that really kind of right, Trent?
Yeah, it really is. And I guess it's just like, it's hard to pitch a game. Like, I know indies that will be talking to each other and seeing each other at shows, and still 3 years down the road, like of having exhibited their game and maybe developing it, they're still talking about, you know, I'm hearing their pitch evolve, and we're like picking it apart. I've been on huge long email threads with other indies where people are talking about, you know, the anatomy of a pitch, like how do you get that elevator pitch down? And that's essentially what a trailer is. Like, it's just so important. And like I said, from the beginning of development, we've been sinking so much money into trailers just because like they're incredibly shareable, and they get it across. Like, you have, you know, video, audio, you know, you can show the game, you can overlay text, like whatever it is. It's such a fantastic toolkit to be able to pitch a game, just pin someone down for 2 minutes and just say, give me 2 minutes of your life and this is
I don't know, like I have a kind of like slightly different angle from that. Well, I agree with you. I think the trailer is also an awesome way to get tone across, and that may not necessarily mean like selling your features or like saying specifically what the gameplay is or what it's like, but selling like that emotional journey and like that excitement. And I think like there's some really successful examples of trailers, like some of the Stanley Parable trailers that do that. They sell that tone without even like showing any of the actual content of the game, which I find really fascinating.
So we did that with Mello, with the debut trailer. So our first trailer was fully animated, so 2D animations, slow. We kind of, and it's funny, the people that we looked for were like looked towards were like directors like Terrence Malick and stuff. We just wanted this sort of visual tapestry that sold a tone to the players. We wanted them to get into the world of Armello and buy into the experience and the fantasy, as opposed to being like 10 maps, 8 characters. You know, we do that with our launch trailer. I was just saying to Katie, because it came up as you were all walking in, she said, "Oh, do you get sick of watching your trailers?" And I said, "Well, no, because we're really proud of them, but this one is a little bit more sell than we would usually have, because it is a launch trailer. You've got to hype it up a bit. You've got to, like, you know, talk about the features a little bit more." But yeah, we definitely did the fully animated 2D thing, selling the tone of the world so that we could preload players with like the feel of the universe and everything, for sure.
So Chris, on this kind of same point, but I'm curious, as part of your answer, how long do you sort of, you know, encourage the indies that you guys work with? Like, how long should they be spending on trying to, you know, get that trailer right, while also maybe it's a, you know, 1 or 2 person shop sometimes that they're like, I'm trying to make a game here, and you're like, make a good trailer.
Well, as the publisher, we do the trailer, so that's part of our work. So sometimes the dev will edit it in now actually increasingly rare circumstances, but it is a lot of time, and also that's where we bring our expertise in. So we manage the trailer. So earlier on, the Hacknet and the Orwell trailers played, which are probably 2 of our best efforts. We spend a lot of time on those, but the dev doesn't have to, you know, spend a lot of that hours. They're just involved for it. But yeah, it is a unique skill, and it is hard, and it does take a lot of time and strategy and thinking about the game in a different way. And to Katie's point earlier, like, the trailer sells the feeling, it sells the benefits, not the features, you know, advertising 101, and a lot of indie trailers fall into that trap of like, I'm just going to show the gameplay and I'm going to keep coming up with feature cards about what's in the game, and it's like, that doesn't sell like ultimately what you get out of playing the game.
Yeah.
You know, you have to sell the feeling. Yes, you need to explain the game, and so often if we have a very tonal video, we'll often do like a gameplay video to go on the store as like a secondary thing. You know, for Screen Cheat, we did that, for example. We have a habit of signing games that are impossible to trailer. It's kind of become our thing. But then we actually produce trailers that people love, so I'm kind of really proud of that. But Hacknet, Screen Cheat, and Orwell are very, very hard games just to show the gameplay, and I think that actually worked well for us because it forced us to really think about actually how are we going to illustrate the pitch without relying on gameplay footage to do that.
Yeah. Now, Mick, you've worked with, you know, as we were coming in, we sort of played a few things, but from, you know, Injustice 2 trailer from E3 this year, the Civ 6 launch trailer, which, interestingly, I always find the launch trailers these days typically are then the, you know, the cinematic you see when you first load up the game. But, you know, when you're talking about these kind of very AAA sort of things, how long do you guys spend working on it? And then also, you know, what's the relationship between the developers and then your work sort of on that trailer? It might be sort of quite separate at times, but obviously there needs to be a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, sure. So typically probably a maybe 2 to 3 minute trailer will take us about 12 to 16 weeks, depending on how crazy our clients' schedules are. The Lego Star Wars Force Awakens trailer that you were showing up there, we did in some obscenely tight amount of time. It was like 8 weeks or something crazy. But in regards to, you know, the connection with the developers, for example, I mean, we tend to have two types of projects. Sometimes there'll be a marketing agency in the middle, and they'll sort of pitch something to the end client, who's probably the publisher, and they'll come to us. Or sometimes the developers come to us directly, as in the case with, say, something like Civ 6. So we were just working directly with 2K because they, you know, it wasn't that trailer, as you said, it wasn't really a marketing piece per se. It was, you know, sort of encapsulating the energy and vibe of the game for the very first time that you open up and play it. But
That's
it has,
really interesting.
yeah.
Why do you say that's not a marketing piece?
Well, in the way of, you know, marketing agencies go, we're going to create this specifically to, you know, increase, you know, the viewership and players who will download the game. But from the perspective of 2K, its main focus is a storytelling piece for, like, it's an in-game cinematic in a way that has a secondary purpose of, you know, being, you know, getting the tease out there, you know, the week before the game comes out.
I would call that a fantastic marketing piece. Then.
Yeah, sure, yeah, definitely, yeah. It is really, yeah, definitely as well, yeah.
And now I noticed as well with a couple of things we showed from Plastic Wax that, you know, there's something like the Force Awakens Lego trailer. Like, did you guys generate all of the assets for that, or was it sort of some of the clips pulled from the game itself? Whereas, say, Injustice and Civ, that seems like it might be a lot more of your kind of original animation work. In regards to the Lego Force Awakens trailer, I mean, we built everything in that brick by brick. Yeah, right.
Like if you actually look at the environments in the background, they're little Lego bricks stacked onto one another, on top of one another. We get sort of low res game assets. And if you're familiar with any of the Lego games, they're not like photoreal quality. They look great and they've got nice shading and lighting stuff. But when you want to look at them really closely, actually our guys go in and actually etch in. Like we will buy the Lego minifigs and take like high-res photos of them, and they'll etch in the seams. I'm just entertain me for a moment. We did a trailer for Lego Dimensions that had a Lego version of Gandalf, and there's one shot where you can see his leg from behind, and if you look really closely inside the back of the Lego leg, there's a little hole. There's an L and an R that the guys actually put in because that's on the actual toy. So while, we do get game assets, but there's a kind of considerable amount of work that goes into those to really make them shine and pop.
This might be a little bit of a tangent, but the Lego crew, like especially at Animal Logic and stuff like that, they have actual tools to just build those assets using, is it called Lego Designer or something like that? Like, did you have access to any of Lego's specific like movie making tools?
The guys do use Lego Designer sometimes,
Yeah.
but we actually made some of our own sort of procedural tools to, and we're doing a talk on it this afternoon. Actually, we're going to go into it if anyone's keen, but. You can select a library of bricks
Yep.
and give it, a model, and
Yep.
it will sort of intelligently
Go
place Lego
these
bricks
things,
in a fashion. But we don't
I
really
just
have
want
the
that for
budget.
home. I just want that for
Yeah,
home.
yeah, that's it.
We didn't have the budget of Animal Logic, so we kind of make these little guerrilla tools that kind
awesome.
of work sometimes. So
So I think we kind of touched on a few of these areas that I want to sort of think about next, but if we kind of talk about a few of those like very specific elements that can help to kind of build the vibe for, I think, again, we've talked about, there's gameplay trailers, there's sort of teaser trailers, there's, I guess, the kind of, I don't know, is there a difference between like a sizzle reel and a teaser, or is that much the same thing? But I'm not sure if I'm kind of missing any of the other types of trailers that might sort of come along, but, music and like style and all these kinds of things, like what do you think are some of those really sort of key things that maybe, some companies kind of overlook in terms of really kind of nailing that polish when they're really trying to, get everybody's attention?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is like non-game assets.
Yeah.
Right. So, stuff that you're creating. So, like with Hacknet, it was very simple. We just did some text in between, but in the start of the game. But that made a big difference because we were able to create content that was just purely for the trailer. With Orwell, we hired a guy called Marlon Weber, who was one of like the 2 top indie game trailer guys, and he took our direction, but he then executed that with all the fake desktop stuff in the game, and that was all created from scratch, and a lot of work went into that. And that enabled us to tell a story that wasn't reliant on the game assets. And I guess even at the AAA end, it's the same thing, right? You're building assets for the trailer that isn't just like, hey, we've got all this amazing content, and yeah, I think the biggest problem is getting stuck with like, what have I got in the game to show right now, and then limiting yourself to that.
Yeah.
Because often, as like Trent was saying with the first Mellow trailer, like we were working on that actually with that announced, right? We worked on that way back in the day.
Right.
The game at that point didn't look that great, right? It was still on the iPad and whatever. And
Not something you could show.
Yeah, if you tried to announce with that, it would not have been as impressive, right? So yeah, I think it's that like not being limited by what's in the game, but starting from the point of view, what have I got to say, and then what do I need to do that, and being prepared to go outside of the easy content to achieve that.
It's standing out too. So there's actually Ichiro Lam from Dejaban Games in Boston just recently made a tool called 6-second Steam trailers or something like that. I believe it's a Twitter bot that you can follow. And what it does is it scrapes data from Steam and makes a supercut 6-second trailer of every game that's released on Steam. So as soon as a game goes up on Steam, this Twitter bot will then make a trailer where it grabs like a second from like 6 seconds from the trailer, and then it will put it up on like tweet it out and say the name of the game. And you watch that and just games are coming through, 16,000 games released all the time or whatever on Steam. But the thing is, you look at it and it's just a great point or example of the saturation of the market. And so a big thing for us was, how do we stand out? We are like people knew who we were in the Australian game dev scene, but that's 5% of the market. We need to be big in the States and in Western Europe and in Asia if we want to be super successful. So how do we stand out in a sea of not just indies but developers when people are, are spoilt for choice in games? And so you look at where you can come in and where you can do that. And so one of the people that we worked with, Adam Duncan, who's now at the studio, he's worked in film and animation. He was at Animal Logic on the Lego films. He's been a traditional 2D illustrator and animator. And so we teamed up with him and his animation studio at the time to do a fully animated 2D trailer. And like, when do you see that? I think maybe Clay are the only other ones that do that. And then also not making it like all of this bombast and like, hey, buy the game, but making it a really slow, sentimental piece, like just selling the tone and like putting up some text, being a bit cryptic about, heroes being out on a journey. Really sell this fantasy of, a hero's journey, like those more emotional moments of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones and stuff like that. And then music is a big one as well. We worked with Lisa Gerard, who's an Academy Award-winning film composer. and singer-songwriter. And then also our composer for the game was historically from film as well, Michael Allen. And those two put together the most incredible soundtrack for our game, but we have all of our trailers scored custom. So we don't use assets from the game for our trailers. I think maybe the launch trailer was the only one that we did. But even then, we didn't have time to do that, so we went to the people who do the Game of Thrones trailers and we said, do our trailer, and just paid them a bunch of money. So it's how do you stand out, like finding those things. And so we made very, very specific decisions, some that were practical, we can't show the game, so what else do we do? That led us to having a trailer that when we released it, like got covered by all the major sites and got 100,000 views or whatever it was, just from relative nobodies out of Melbourne, Australia.
You touched on it like just a second ago, but something that I see developers always forgetting about, and I feel I have to remind them often, is pacing and how important pacing is for setting a tone or setting a mood. And I saw something recently, maybe you guys, who here has seen Every Frame a Painting by Tony Zhu? Couple of you, okay, good. For all the rest of you, I am so excited for you because you get to go and check it out now. It's so good. So Tony Zhu is this film critic. He makes YouTube videos and he focuses on a particular angle of cinematography. And in one of the recent ones I was watching, he talked about pace, and he used the example of Luke Skywalker in that classic scene where he's trying for the first time to use the Force to lift up his ship out of the water. Do you guys remember that one? And he shows a breakdown of the amount of seconds leading up to and after failure. So how long was the shot held beforehand? So the build up, you think everyone's getting behind him, you're rooting for him, he's totally gonna do it, and then he fails, and then that's the key moment. So that moment is held for longer. So it actually goes 3, 2, 1 in terms of seconds, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So they hold the emotional moment much longer than they hold that build up, and it really creates that sense of failure and loss, and that's the moment that you're supposed to remember in the film. And so I think it's a really good way for, I think Tony does a particularly good job of breaking down why pace is so important, and I like to check trailers that I'm working on whether or not they have that pace, and whether or not those key moments that we want people to remember in the trailers are being held for the right amount of time.
For you two guys that are in the marketing side, are there sometimes clients that don't sort of see the importance, or do you find it's hard to convince people sometimes to really put that effort in, or do you think if someone nowadays, if they're making a game, they know how important the trailer's going to be?
Some of them, it's hard because like Chris said, it's such a lot of resources for them, and it's often money and time that they don't have. So yeah, it is sometimes hard, but it's I have to sit them down and say, look, this is super important. You need to prioritize it. And often they don't have the skills necessary for it as well. It's a whole other area of, skill that people build up over a lifetime, and they're now expected to be able to do that. So I often say, prioritize your outsourcing. And Trent, I think you guys are a wonderful example of how much return you can get from that investment, even if they don't see it up front. So yeah, to answer your question, I do sometimes have to do that, yeah.
As a dev, I can 100% say that, and especially in indie dev, you're rushing towards launch or these external deadlines and stuff. You're just looking for any excuse to cut anything from your to-do list.
Yeah.
So if you can justify in your mind at all, okay, so I'm sitting on this panel, and while we were just having little chats, I tuned out for a second, and I literally thought, I had this exact thought, I wonder if we could get away with not doing a trailer for that next DLC. Yeah. I thought that we got some DLC coming out, and I'm like, is it big enough? Will it justify it? But we could get. So you're definitely thinking about it, and yeah, we've reached points. We actually got to the point with our launch trailer where we were just we're past the period where we can get it done ourselves, and we have so many other things. And moving up to the launch of the game that we've worked on for 5 years. And we have 10 people in the studio. This is make or break. Our time, although we might be getting paid $80 an hour or something like that on the books, it's worth paying someone $500 an hour to do what we could probably do, because our time is so much more valuable right now. And so, like I said, we just went out and to the Game of Thrones crew. I think a little interesting tangent too is you mentioned Marlon Weber. This whole indie dev thing, with indies everywhere, is really interesting, but you don't see the people on the sidelines that are also indies. So Kurt Gartner and Derek Liu and Marlon Weber, these are all of those indie trailers that you see out all the time, even things like Campo Santo's trailer for Firewatch and, Towerfall, all these different ones. a lot of them aren't done by the studio. They're done by one of 5 of these indie like trailer gunslingers that are just cruising around doing amazing work on the scene, servicing a lot of indie studios.
A lot of good games get killed by a bad trailer.
Ooh,
and it's, we were hoping to sign a game that we didn't get in the end. But the dev was super nice, and so we kept in touch. And he decided to do a Kickstarter, and he was going to do it himself. And he didn't get any help from the publisher in the end that he went with because he wanted to do it himself. And this was a game that had every big YouTuber playing it, like millions and millions of views. It was a super hot game. And he put out a terrible trailer, and he just scraped over $30,000 on Kickstarter. He should have made 10 times that with the buzz that he had. But the trailer is just terrible. And it's because he was trying to do it all himself and taking it on and maybe didn't realize just how much was involved. And that's really painful when you see a game that's got a great pitch in it, but has been pitched in a really bad way because you see just that lost potential. So yeah, I think sometimes devs don't quite understand how much of a difference it can make to your potential and how much you can screw yourself over if you don't invest in it.
Yeah, just on that note, I mean, we've sometimes even the relationship between marketing and the dev can be super damaging, particularly if they sort of, I know it sounds bad if they collaborate too much. We had this trailer that was unfortunately sort of cancelled, and I'm telling you, it's the best IP that you could ever imagine working on. It's a dream project. We started off with a great pitch. Our clients in the boardroom going, "This is awesome, guys. This is amazing," you know. And then 6 to 8 weeks down the road, you know, the problems start to surface. They're getting, you know, the marketing guys are like, "Oh, you have to show this feature and this feature and this feature," and that's up, you know, changing the script and the flow. And then they just send it off to they send it to the developer in another country and go, "Hey guys, what do you think?" 3 months in to this, you know, pre-pro and production, and then they come back with all this feedback and they're like, "Oh no, you can't do that. You've got to change that." And it can be really destructive. And it takes actually it's really great when either the developer or the marketer just has a really strong, clear vision and they stick to it, and they don't start, you know, listening to the, you know, the cleaning lady who goes past the office and go, "What do you think about this?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't get what that is."
Can you,
know,
can you use a different blue?
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
that danger of like too many edits as well. Like we nearly ruined the Orwell trailer near the end because it just wasn't quite right, and so we were like for 72 hours. Martin's on the east coast of North America, so the time difference was terrible. So but at all hours of the night and so on, we were emailing backwards and forwards and making these slight little changes to the point where we almost couldn't tell anymore, like, was it good or not? And in the end, we managed to get the right balance. But it is like at that final point, or if there's too many voices coming in, it is such a dangerous point in the life of a trailer where you can over-edit it to the point of just loses that, you know, that flow or the magic that it kind of had at one point, even when it was rough. So, yeah, it is a danger, and keeping it tight to that group that's going to make the decisions is really important.
Yeah, it's a real balance. Sorry, Chris. It's a real balance between like the high level, maintaining the high level, selling the dream, like selling the sizzle, not the sausage. So we had a very successful Kickstarter campaign, and one of the reasons that I believe it's for is because we just 100% understood that Kickstarter's about selling the dream. It's like, it's not about listing your features or whatever. It's selling people what they're missing out on, like, you know, all of that. And that's the same for our trailers. And I think keeping that real bird's eye view where we actually do get into the point where we've got like 5 different edits, and I'm like, and I'm like, the King's intonation on that raw is like maybe a bit better than this. And I'm asking other people, and they're like, "You're fucking crazy. What are you doing?" But like, we do get to that point, but then you've sort of got to step back and go, okay, you know what, that doesn't really matter. What matters is that we're selling the dream, we're selling the sizzle. And I think, you know, without trying to get into that whole conversation, that's something that No Man's Sky was absolutely fantastic at. Like, you can't argue with the fact that it was like the most solid, greatest pitch, like in video game, like recent history. It's like they just knew how to sell that game. And like all the trailers, everything, like they understood the high level, what is our fantasy, what is our player fantasy, what are we selling? And I think all of the issues, that came after that with, were just more of like how they managed the PR and how how the interviews went and stuff like that, and not clarifying particular things. But that general high-level pitch of the game is super strong. And I think if you can nail that, like No Man's Sky is a perfect example of how big it can be. Darkest Dungeon is another one. Firewatch is another one. Like these trailers, and Star Wars, right? The trailers for Star Wars, I mean, I've been watching that series since I was like a child, and a new trailer comes out and like tingles all throughout my entire body. I'm just like, oh, sign me up.
And Mick, that's actually, it kind of leads in nicely there of when you're having that first back and forth, I'd love to kind of have an understanding of, when they come to you, are they saying, here's the vibe we're looking for, or is it that you go back and sort of say, okay, based on what we've seen, here's what we think we can build for you as a vibe for a trailer?
Yeah, it kind of happens both ways. Sometimes the client will come to us with a pretty clear idea and a script, and other times we hear about the project and we'll pitch on it. So in the case of the Lego Star Wars Force Awakens trailer, we heard about that, at that time the only piece of media that was out for the Force Awakens was that first teaser, and we just said, let's make that with Lego. And seriously, and when we created, we basically went in and made these style frames in CG that were recreating specific frames from the trailer itself, just entirely out of Lego, and just sent them to the client. And then about a month later, they came back to us with the script, which was that idea. And that was cool. I mean, I just have to say this because it's super cool, but on that project, the final sign-off was JJ.
Oh, right.
And
wow.
so we would just be walking around the office. We're totally delayed. It's like they haven't approved, and we're like, oh, we're just waiting for JJ. It's kind of nice to be able to say that.
So I think we're going to take some questions in a few minutes. So if anybody does sort of have any key questions, you can kind of head towards the mics, and we'll start that. But that's probably just a couple of minutes from now. So get your cool question thinking underway. What do you think, people like me, everybody here in the room, what do you think fans and audiences don't really understand about making a trailer genuinely good? Or is there anything, or is it just everything we've already talked about?
Yeah, people want gameplay. Like every trailer that we put out, so we spoken about our game publicly for like 2 years, even showed it off and exhibited at places before we put any footage of gameplay on it. And people are always like, show me the gameplay, show me the gameplay. And we're like, doesn't matter at all. Like, does not matter. You'll see it at some point. Like, we'll release gameplay. Yeah, sure, if you launch a game and all you've shown is CG, like cinematic trailers, it's a bit rough. How do people know what the gameplay's about? But like, it's just totally not about that early on in the process.
That's a good question to be getting, I guess, if people are desperately keen to see.
Yeah, exactly. Like we just, some other people on the team will be like, oh, we've got to do a gameplay thing. I'm like, no, this is perfect. Like, this is actually exactly what we want. We want people hungry for that gameplay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like the conspiracy theories that come out of trailers are just hilarious. Like, especially early trailers when the game might still be in development, and you get all of the consumers going, oh, why didn't they put this in there, or what's going to happen, and you're like, it's not even made yet. Like, who knows? Like, it could be anything. Like, I actually really like that. But most of the time, like, if you're watching a trailer and you're wondering, why certain elements may be missing, there's probably a reason for that, and it could be as simple as it's just not made yet, or it could be as simple as like the next one's going to show it and they're trying to build up to something. So,
Or we don't know.
Or we don't know, yeah.
Did you any Easter egging stuff go on in the because I know people go frame by frame through this stuff sometimes. And
there's heaps in the Orwell trailer. It's almost entirely Mr. Robot references, but you can like freeze frame it, and there's fake desktop stuff. So there's like what's on his Twitter feed or his fake Twitter feed, and it's almost all random references to 1984, Mr. Robot, and we put heaps of that stuff in. And then we created a Twitter account for the character in the trailer as well, and we didn't know if people were going to respond to that or not. Some people found it, but it wasn't a big thing, so we just left that. But if people that had responded, we were going to then create a whole him tweeting about stuff and building a following. We just made the effort because it had a Twitter handle. We were like, someone's going to go look, and it would be cool if it was there. So that was fun. It's kind of nice in the creative process to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we had, in the Lego Star Wars trailer, we actually had at one point in the desert, there was a skeleton of Jar Jar Binks in the sand, but our client caught it. And unfortunately, they were like, no Jar Jar. So.
The way that I write is not like George R. Martin, where you know everything that's going on in the universe, and it's like
not like
architecture.
George R. R. Martin.
It's close.
That should be the next box quote.
But I mean, in regards to like writing style and how much you know about your universe, it drives my business partner and like creative partner, Blake, crazy, because he's like, "What's the political system of this race, though?" And I'm like, "I don't know, whatever you want, a Senate." And so what I'm getting at is we will put things in our trailer or in the game and just make references to things. So I did a hero background on one of the characters that's like from the Bandit clan, and I spoke about it was something like the black. Yeah, see, I can't even remember. It's like the Black Rose plot or something like that. And Blake was like, "Oh, what's that?" I'm like, "I don't know, we'll figure it out later. We need some new content or something. It'll be the Black Rose plot, DLC." So we do a lot of that stuff. Like we'll just throw things in there and create characters and, like these particular like cutthroat highwaymen that are robbing you. And that's the sort of stuff that people always ask us, like, "Who's that character? What do they do?" Or like, "Oh, the Black Rose plot." I'm like, "Oh my God, what's that?" And, and then you see it enter fan fiction. Someone wrote a 70-page comic, like wrote and drew and everything, a 70-page comic. Totally fan fiction on Armello. Oh, he's here. Yeah. And that sort of stuff finds its way into it. It's amazing. Like you just put out little crumbs and it gives you so many ways to go with your stuff and for other people to latch onto and create engagement.
This isn't a trailer thing, but you know about the hand thing and those a bunch of indie games? Do you know about that hand thing?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about
No,
the hand
I
thing?
can't.
No!
I've been sworn to secrecy.
You've been sworn to secrecy. Yeah, I thought if I put you on stage, you'd like have to tell
So
me.
apparently, yeah, look for the hand thing, apparently.
Ooh.
One last question before we throw it open. How do you actually judge the success of a trailer? Is it just, it got this many views, or are there like sentiment tracking? Like what kinds of things, particularly I guess from the marketers, what sorts of things are you doing to really judge, are we building the right attention we need, all that sort of thing?
So a couple of things that we look for. We judge all of our PR campaigns by the number of trailer views we get because it's the most accurate way to tell. So let's say we get an article on CNET or GameSpot. That's great. Hey, we're on GameSpot. But what we actually need to know is, did it actually engage people and did people look at the article, right? And the trailer views tell us that, and we know where the trailer views come from. So if we have a successful announce, we're looking at like 40, 50,000 views on the trailer, and we're like, okay, yeah, that actually caught the imagination. So we certainly look at views, because almost all of those are going to be based on media coverage rather than pure YouTube videos. We look at comments and we look at view time. So you can see on a YouTube video like whether people stay or not, which is why most trailers need to be under a minute, because after a minute it really starts to drop down to like 30-40% of the views are actually all the way through. But you can see if a trailer is like dropping heavily after like 20-30 seconds, that people just didn't engage with it, or if it stays really high all the way through, then clearly like people that were watching were interested to watch more. So we can look at those. And the last one is just buzz. Like if people are actually sharing the trailer on Twitter, then we've definitely done our job, because that's critical, is that sense of like, I've watched this, you need to see it too.
Yeah. That's a big metric we look at, is number of shares on Facebook. Another good one is, say for example, if you're a developer, you have a game released on Steam, you can tell where people are coming to your page from. Same for Kickstarter, things like that. So, and even more so, if it's your own website or something, you can put a bit.ly link on things. So if you have a bit.ly account, for shortened URLs, you can actually get analytics on where people are coming from with that actual bit.ly link, or when they're using it. So, if you put a trailer up on YouTube, you make a custom bit.ly link, so if people are coming to your site from that link, then it's obviously the YouTube one. So we do that because we use views too. It's very accurate, and it's also good to see them like rank up, and you're like, yeah. But then also, it's like, it's cool if people are watching your trailer, but are they watching it for 10 seconds and then bouncing off, so how close are they getting to the point of action, whether it be a wish listing or buying your game? And so we try and track that as much as possible. Like we will, as soon as you pop up into I've engaged with anything Armello, we are looking at everything that you've done down the chain. So like, where are you going then? Are you going to the website? Are you going to the Steam page? What are our conversions on our Steam page? So what percentage chance have we had of you buying it, et cetera, et cetera. And I think maybe that's something about trailers that people don't know is like how much we use them to actually track like the engagement of our games.
Cool. Awesome. Let's take a first question over here on the left.
Hey guys, I have a question about the sort of like the budget side of things. You mentioned that Armello threw something like 10 to 15 grand into their trailers.
Yep.
What if you're like, you know, a 1 to 3 person team with a solid pitch, a product that's more than half the way through, but you don't have that kind of capital?
Yep.
What happens?
So yeah, that's really tricky. I guess the thing is that you could, if you feel confident, you can make it yourself. Like if there's enough tools and everything out there, if you can make a game, you can certainly make a trailer. Like I'm not saying that you have the creative ability to make a great trailer, but technically you can make a trailer. So I would, you know, even if it's just in iMovie or something like that, right? So you can, that's one option. Then there's always mates rates. Find a friend who does this sort of stuff in their day job and say like, hey, can you help us out? Or but obviously with respect to their craft and everything. And the fact that you're asking them to do their job a little bit cheaper than usual. But we found ways around it. So say, for example, that trailer was $10,000 to $15,000, but it's a minute 30 of fully 2D hand-drawn animation. And which is cheap. Like that costs $1,000 a second. Like if you go to someone like Titmouse in LA, who, you know, do a bunch of cartoons and stuff like that, they did the Diablo shorts, they will charge you $1,000 a second. So that's really cheap. But the way that we did it was that Adam was part of the team. He was financially invested in the team. His studio was at a point where they wanted a big project that wasn't just like an ABC After School Kids cartoon, that they were 2 studios. This is getting into a lot of detail. Anyway, they wanted to relaunch their brand and they thought that it was a way that they could do it. And it worked. Yeah. So finding people who it's mutually beneficial for to do something cool to do a trailer with. The other thing is that the Film Vic, the Victorian government, have something which is Chris and Surprise Attack and ourselves we were some of the first ones to take advantage of this and get it into place. They have a marketing fund. So if you have an independent game, you can apply for not production funds, but up to $30,000 in marketing funds. So I'm not sure if you're from Victoria, but if you're from Victoria, well, okay. Oh well, sorry. But anyway, there are other ways that you can do it.
Yeah, trailers. Yeah, the cost it's heavily dependent on how much non-game stuff you have to create, and the quality of the editor and so on. But if you're releasing an indie game commercially,
yeah,
and you underinvest in your trailer, whether that's time or dollars, it's the worst thing to underinvest in all the marketing. Like, don't come and exhibit at a show like this if it means that you then have the budget to spend $2-3 grand on a trailer.
Yeah.
Because it really makes such a big difference at every part of the process in terms of someone engaging, not just press, but also when they come to the store page, the first thing they do is watch the trailer. You know, it is the worst thing to rush out and not invest in. If you don't have the marketing skills, go to someone like Lumi, a consultant that can help you with the strategy side of it. If you don't have the editing skills, get someone on as an editor. The Hacknet trailer cost us $300 because we have an insanely cheap editor out of Holland who just loves doing stuff for us. When we don't need, you know, creative stuff, we just need a good editor. So it doesn't have to cost a lot. Just don't skimp on it.
Sorry, go.
To add to that is, like, I work across a range of different development sizes and types of games, and trailers that I've worked on have cost, you know, anywhere between $2,000 to $30,000. So there's a huge range out there, and it's just about finding something that fits your project, but making sure that you actually do invest the time in it. Whatever the resources are that you have make sure if you can't invest financial resources, you do invest time resources.
Yeah. A lot of people talk about costs on these things. If you're making an independent, or if you're making something that's commercial, it's no longer costs. They're all investments, right? And then you just need to look at every individual investment as to its potential return. Yeah. And I would argue that trailers, done well for the right game, have the highest return on investment.
The other recommendation I make about that is just make one good trailer instead of 4 or 5 average trailers. We mostly now just make the one, and we use it to announce the game, and it's also our launch trailer. Because with an indie game, unlike, say, Armello actually kind of is an exception to this rule, most of the time there's not that much more to say.
Yeah.
Then, you know, people aren't coming to learn about this particular feature that you have to dedicate a trailer to. You're just selling the elevator pitch. And so if you invest in one really good trailer, you do not need another one later on.
If you do just go for one trailer, Is it a tonal piece? Is it a gameplay piece? Or are you just
The one you should invest in is the tonal piece. The gameplay trailer doesn't have to be as slick because it's the second trailer they watch on your store page. You know, the other thing that you can do, which we've done for Screen Sheet a lot, was we made Let's Play compilations. The press will not cover those because it's competitive media, basically. But for the store page, it was a really good way of showing that the game was fun, but also having validation. So Screen Sheet's been played by a lot of big YouTubers like PewDiePie and Markiplier and so on. Rooster Teeth. So by putting together a compilation of gameplay clips from them, we got not just the gameplay, but the reaction to the gameplay. And that, when you watch that as a consumer, you go, oh, this game is clearly fun, and I'm excited by the gameplay. And that's most YouTubers are very happy if you just email them to use that content. So that can be a really good way to have a good gameplay trailer, which again is just about an editing job.
Cool. We'll take a question over here on the right.
This may be a very crazy question. Do you believe it is deceptive marketing for a game company to use pre-rendered footage and suggest that it is actually in the game as gameplay?
Can I have a crack at this one?
Yeah,
it's a really good question, and obviously it is always a talking point, when a trailer comes out and it's like, hey, that's not exactly what the game is. But recently, that's really starting to change. Game engines are just getting so, shit hot in what they can put out and how good the stuff looks that a lot of people are going, hey, let's make all of our marketing trailers in-engine using all the game assets. I'm not sure if any of you saw the Paragon trailer for Epic Games did. That's in-engine, real-time, using the same assets that you're playing within the game. So while it's always going to be, a marketing spin to go, hey, look, let's make something that's complete eye candy that has nothing to do with the game. But we've all fallen for it. Like, if you go back in the day, one of Plastic Wax's first trailers was that really hit the market was Dawn of War 2. Pretty much every gamer knows that trailer. But that's a top-down, RTS,
Yeah.
when what you're doing there is you're making the magic and you're creating the spark that is going to excite all the gamers, right? So, I mean, and then people will come back and go, hey, that's not the actual gameplay. And it's a valid comment, but I think as we move forward, you're going to see a lot more content that is actually, because the technology's there now, in-engine, it's exactly what it looks like, but it still looks really awesome.
I feel like we're seeing sort of as well that I think some companies are picking up on, on that kind of sentiment that people are really worried sometimes if it looks that good. And
It's too good.
And that they're now, they're starting to use they're straight up writing on it that's like real in-game footage to almost make that part of the selling point of going, no, seriously, this is in the game.
I mean, look, I go so far as to say every trailer is an ad. If you're watching it and you're not treating it like that and applying a filter, which is this is an advertisement, that's just crazy. Like, that's what they're there to do. They're not there to be, here is 10 minutes of gameplay, exactly what the gameplay is. And now with Let's Plays and everything else, there are so many opportunities as consumers to see the game as it really is afterwards. So treat trailers as ads and be skeptical of what it is. They're not like, here is just some honest gameplay. They are making the best shot at kind of sell you the pitch of the game, right? So I don't think anyone should be looking at a trailer and kind of feeling like they were conned into thinking that's what the game was.
Yeah, because
these days.
the graphics are only one part of the game as well. It's like there's all this whole other, there's a story and the music and the feeling that you get while playing it, and those are the things that you also want people to feel when they watch the trailer material as well. So it's not just about having like high fidelity, authentic graphics. Although I'll tell you what, mobile games ads are the worst culprits of this.
Oh, Clash of Clans.
Oh my
I hate
God.
that commercial.
The other day-
It is the worst thing I've ever seen. Rules of the Duel. That is horrible.
Yeah. The other day I was like playing 10,000 Husbands or whatever I'm playing on mobile at the moment, and this ad popped up and it was for a dragon game, and it was so cool. There were like dragons sweeping over and it was like 3D animated. It was awesome. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get this game. And I downloaded it and I opened it and it was like cartoon, like really badly drawn 2D cartoon dragon clicker game, and I'm like, how this is not representative. So there's a line there that people need to be aware of, and I think they are sometimes taking advantage of you and advantage of the fact that this is just going to get you to download the game, but yeah, I don't think that's very fair either, you know?
Yeah,
So-
that's the line I'm referring to. I'm fine if it's pre-rendered and you use like somewhat gameplay and it's representative, but if you're going to a point where you're going to put fully pre-rendered and it's not even symbolic of what the gameplay actually is, then that is completely deceptive.
Yeah, and you
I'm
have
gonna
every right to
jump
that.
in there. I'm gonna say that that's not actually true. What that is that's what we were talking about before. That's selling the dream. And the reason why I say that is because we have a fully 2D animated game and none of those assets are in our game. And so what we're doing is and it's not deceptive. I think the big thing with this question or this general sentiment is that people are out there to trap you or something like that. That's not the case. People just want to see. They've been working on something for 4 years or something. They want you to see it in the best light. They're so proud of it. And also, it doesn't come from maliciousness or bad intent or anything like that. It's just people wanting to show you something in the best light. And like Chris said, it's an advertisement. They do want to sell the game so they can continue making more games. And it's just this weird thing where sometimes your desire for, or when I say your, I mean gamers in general, the public's desire for accurate representation of what they're going to buy, and then the developer or the publisher's desire to show you the best side of something that they're incredibly proud of and that they want to sell, they just get a little bit misaligned.
It's like asking McDonald's to put up a real photograph of a Big Mac on their menu, or the toy manufacturers in the toy ads to not fake how exciting the toys are, right? It's advertising is an abstraction. All advertising is an abstraction, and it's not documentary.
I think there are better hills to die on as well.
Yes. We have time for one last question there. Yep.
On that point, advertisement is an abstraction. I was just wondering, from your specific points of view, marketing specifically, developing specifically, and then production of trailers, coming into this sort of ideology that perhaps people are misleading consumers and stuff like that, is there anything, when you're showing people the trailer, people are coming up to you and saying, don't show this, don't show that, instead of, please show this, it's really cool, please show this aspect of gameplay? Is there anything that people are saying, please do not show this, lest people overanalyze it and take away the wrong point?
100%. Our art director and my business partner, Ty, is just like, do not get that fucking close to the models. They're not designed for that. But you can zoom in that close in the game, But of course, we're not going to shoot up on you could do a really cinematic shot of Braun, one of our bear characters, swing around him, but then you see out of the world or something like that. Definitely those technical glitches. Also, our Mallow is a game where you click and the character moves. And you click, and the character moves. And you go, cast spell, and it goes, psh. But our trailers are fucking boom, and shit's going on. If we just showed gameplay, no one would buy our game. But it's not because the gameplay sucks, it's because in that format of a 2-minute trailer, it doesn't do it justice. It doesn't give you the feeling that you have when you're at that 80-minute mark of a 90-minute epic game of Armello with your friends from across the world.
Well, when people watching trailers have no attention span, right? So a lot of games you actually have to play for a couple of hours before you get it.
Yeah.
Something like Monster Hunter, you have to play for 20 hours before you get it, right? So you can't, that adds a whole extra challenge, right? Sometimes in the attention span of what people have, you don't have the time to explain stuff fully, so you have to leave some of that stuff out. With Orwell, we had to leave out a lot of, we had to really watch for spoilers because it's a story-driven thriller game, so we had to really be careful about what we showed of the gameplay. There was another reason why we didn't have a lot of gameplay in there, is that we didn't want to have too many screens that people could then start reading and trying to guess some of the plot beforehand. So that's, and I think even for CGI games and so on, again, same thing. You don't want to spoil some of the story elements of games, but at the same time, you want to show the exciting moments, right? So that becomes a challenge too.
Yeah, well, one of the risks that happens quite a lot is you might have this great aspirational trailer that captures the magic and the tone of the game, and the client's like, okay, there's this feature where they upgrade if you do this. You have to show that in the trailer, or let's add we want to show this unique thing that they can share abilities or whatever, and it's like, okay, now let's just start shoehorning that stuff in, and that can sort of really start to weaken the message. People don't sort of lose sight. Hey, we had this really great vision, we all agreed to it, and then they start watering it down by trying to jam stuff in there.
I do remember hearing that all the Overwatch story videos that they've done, that they were quite pleased with. In each of them, each character uses their full set of abilities, and their ultimate in some way, to try to have that kind of game attachment to what is a total kind of little story package.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well, just for everyone in the room, like really just give people the benefit of the doubt at the end of the day. Like when these people are making these trailers, they just want you to get into their game. They've been working on something for however long. They want you to love it. They're a team of very talented people doing the best they can. No one's there going, oh yeah, if they see that, they'll buy this game. Fuck, it sucks. It's not even in the game, or crank it up.
In fact, like, you do actually have to be careful with the trailer not to mislead people too much. Steam Refunds has a category for the reason why you refunded that is specifically the trailer doesn't match the game. Yeah. So you do actually, and as an indie, you do have to think about how you're pitching it, because people don't spend as much time thinking about whether they're going to buy an indie game as they do a AAA game. So it's more of an impulse purchase. So in fact, like, there is an incentive for us not to go too far off with the message, because we can then have negative reviews.
Yeah, it backfires.
You know, and so on.
Or
There's some inbuilt
like,
systems for
if it's like a free-to-play game, and you download the game, and it's not what the trailer shows, you're just going to delete it. So you're not actually going to get to the point that you want, which is people engaging with your product.
That's the irony about that Clash of Clans trailer. It's like all you've lost is memory that you can get back on your device, right? Like, and then if you've bought something in the game, then that has nothing to do with the trailer. That has you going into the game and knowing what's there and buying something.
Cool. Could we give a very big thank you to Katie, Trent, Chris, and Mick. I'm Seamus Byrne from CNET. Thank you very much. Cheers.